thanks for joining the talk this evening. Just to introduce myself, my name's Aislinn Green. It does not look how it sounds. It's an Irish name, so yeah, it's pronounced Aislinn. I've been an Agile coach since around 2005, so Jeff was saying that we're getting old. I'm definitely feeling that way now. My passion is to help organizations, teams, and individuals achieve their goals through agility. So I have been working in this role since 2005, really trying to see how I can help people to meet their goals and to understand what their goals are and what success looks like for them. I am a guide with the Agile Mastery Institute, which is the meetup that we're talking about here. I am from Derry in Ireland. So some of the pictures that I have used for the quotes today are pictures that I have taken myself from out walking in the morning. So you'll get to see my beautiful city. I actually live in Donegal, which I always have to say, which is another beautiful county in Ireland. So yeah, that's where the funny accent is from. I'm from Derry and based in Donegal. So if you have any questions, comments, just want to say hi, feel free to do that in the chat. More than happy to take questions as we go. So our agenda for today, we're going to explore what is emotional intelligence. We'll talk about the impact of emotional intelligence on teams. We'll look at how we can develop our emotional intelligence, and please do ask questions as we go throughout. All right, so just to get everybody started, if you want, you can speak out or you can use the sim reaction. And just to see how everybody's feeling at the minute. So just want to see if we're awake, if we're not feeling so great, if we're okay. So are we thumbs down as not great? I need this to be good to keep me awake. Are we thumbs up for okay, I'm a bit tired but ready to dive in? A love heart for great, can't wait to explore more on emotional intelligence. And a celebration for fantastic, raring to go, bring it on. All right, and seeing some emotions coming in there, great. Okay, most people are, oh, there we go, we got a raring to go as well. Great, perfect. I don't have to keep anybody awake. Well, hopefully you'll keep awake as we go through it anyway. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate that, folks. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a little bit of interaction. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to think too much or do too much tonight. But I am going to ask you just a little bit of, if you can share with me, what is your current understanding of emotional intelligence? So what do you think emotional intelligence is? What have you heard about it? You can put it in the chat. You can write on the screen. So to write on the screen, just go to annotate and switch it to the little text button. And you can just write directly on the screen here. But what do you understand at the minute about emotional intelligence? So feel free to put it in the chat, or if you want to speak out, that'd be lovely. If you want to come off mute and talk as well, that'd be great to hear your voice. So put it off mute or write it in the chat or write it on the board. What do you understand at the minute about emotional intelligence? Anything? Okay, perfect. I can see lots of people putting it in the chat. Fantastic. Being conscious of other people's reactions, ability to relate to others easily, read the room or understand how someone else is feeling and connecting with them, responding appropriately. Daniel Goleman's, I think 2 people have mentioned Daniel Goleman there. Empathize with others. Great, lots and lots and lots of answers coming in, brilliant. Being able to read the other person's true feelings. Active listening skills that allow you to relate to those you're interacting with. Awareness of one's own emotions and the emotions of others. Great. Being more aware of myself. Okay, got lots of stuff coming up there. Being aware of your own and others' emotions. Brilliant. Okay, well, this is great. We have lots of people understanding what it is or having a basic understanding of what emotional intelligence is. Fantastic. I'll just download that so I can save the replies. Let me just clear that. Okay, I've just saved it and cleared it. But brilliant. We've got a lot of people there coming up with what emotional intelligence is. And mentioned Daniel Goleman, who I've taken the quote from of what is emotional intelligence. So Daniel describes emotional intelligence as the ability to recognize your emotions, understand what they are telling you, and realize how your emotions affect people around you. It also involves your perception of others. When you understand how they feel, this allows you to manage relationships more effectively. So I think I've seen a lot of those things coming up there when people were saying about how you manage your emotions, how you interact with others, how we have empathy. So how we actually try to understand how others are feeling. So that's what Daniel Goleman, and he talks about the 4 key domains of emotional intelligence. And those 4 domains he talks about, we have 2 which are inward facing, so we're looking at ourselves, and that is around our self-awareness and our self-management. So a self-awareness is about knowing ourselves, knowing our own emotions. Can we recognize the emotions within ourselves? Our self-management is talking about how well can we manage our own emotions? How do we know what our triggers are? How do we know, are we able to control our responses and respond effectively to different stimulus? And then we have 2 outward facing domains in the social awareness and the relationship management. So the social awareness is looking at how aware are we of others' feelings, how well we can read others' feelings. And relationship management is about how we build that relationship with others, how we coach, mentor, how we resolve conflict when we're working with others as well. So we're going to go a lot deeper into these 4 different domains. Is there any questions as we go so far? Any questions, comments? Guys, any questions come up in the chat so far?
Not yet.
Not yet. Perfect. Let me know if we have as we go through. Feel free, guys, to ask questions. We'll definitely look at keeping this engaged, responsive as we go through, based on any feedback.
Gestation, I'd rather listen to you and rather disrupt things with questions. So that's how I see this going.
That's all right. No problem, David. If there's any questions you do have, please feel free just to interrupt as well. I love hearing other people talk too. Just not my own voice. So emotional intelligence is the first thing that we were talking about was self-awareness. So when Daniel Goleman talked about his 4 domains, he also talked about 12 competencies that sit underneath those domains. And they're not split evenly across the 4 domains. But within our self-awareness, we have the competency of emotional self-awareness. And when we are talking about these competencies, these are things that we can develop. All right. So your emotional intelligence isn't something that you're stuck with. You don't have the same amount of emotional intelligence all of the time. You can develop it, you can know it, and you can identify what parts of your emotional intelligence that you need to grow. So our emotional self-awareness is looking at the ability to know our own emotions and the effects that they have on us. So do we understand what our own values are? Do we know what our core values are and how what we're doing aligns with that? Are we clear on what our emotions are? So if we're experiencing something, do we are we able to recognize which emotion it is and how it's impacting us? So know how we're feeling, why we're feeling it, and the impact that it has on it is what our self-awareness is all about. I can see there, Dina, you've put something there. You've always had to put effort into the self-awareness. I agree. Self-awareness is something that is so, I actually really think this quote resonates with me. The most difficult thing in life is to know yourself. So it is, I think it's a lifelong journey to keep studying yourself, is to understand what your own emotions are telling you, to understand what your own emotions what your own values are and how, you know, what's the stimuli, how you're reacting to that. So definitely it's a lifelong journey to continuously always know more about yourself and as you change.
Seeing as you've broken your own flow, Aislinn,
yeah,
there was a question from Kelly in the chat about whether people find any of the domains easier or harder.
So for the different domains, it's just, you know, there's no right answer in any of these and there's nothing that every single person finds easier or harder. It depends on the person, and different people have different strengths in different areas. Like some people are great at, you know, being able to influence others and coach others, but they may have more work to do around understanding their own internal feelings and thoughts and how that works as well. So there are really good assessments that can help you, guide you to areas that you can develop, and we all have different areas to develop, and nobody will be perfect in everything. It's a journey to keep on looking at and keep on reevaluating where else you can grow in your emotional intelligence. Was it Kelly asked that question, did you say, Jeff?
Yes.
Kelly, does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, helpful, thank you. I was just curious as whether there was like a sort of like stages, like once you have some foundations, does it help you move on to the next thing and master that? But sounds like people are stronger in different areas from your answer, so thank you.
Yeah, the good thing to look at, Kelly, is the different competencies. So there are 12 competencies which we're going to go through, and you can look at under each of the different competencies which ones that you feel maybe you need to develop more of, or develop in, and different people will have different ones that they need to look at as they go through. But thank you so much for the question. I appreciate it. So that's our emotional self-awareness. It's really about understanding yourself. And this is just going back to what Kelly was saying there, you know, is there stuff that, you know, is there an order of this? Well, part of this is really, if you can understand yourself, that's kind of a baseline, because if you don't understand yourself, you're probably going to struggle to understand others as well, the emotions that they're having and what the impact is on them. So there is always a level here that you need to continuously invest in understanding yourself and your own emotions and your own impacts. So then we go on to self-management, and the difference what self-management is about your ability to manage those emotions, your response to those emotions. So I actually love this quote by Viktor Frankl, and the quote is, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom." That to me really sums up what self-management is all about. It's about our ability to choose our response. So do we understand the emotion that we're feeling? Can we create the space to actually understand how we should respond to this? You know, I don't know if anybody's ever, well, I'm pretty sure everybody's had this experience where they've been in a situation and something has triggered them, and they're going to they react in a way that they go, oh, afterwards they go, oh, I shouldn't have reacted like that. That was maybe too strong for what actually happened. And basically our brains got hijacked and gone, okay, I've just blown up. I've had a response to this stimulus, and it wasn't proportionate response to what actually happened. And lots of reasons can come up for that. It could be due to the fact that maybe something in the past, you know, we had a bad experience around it. It could be that we're tired. It could be that we're emotional at the minute, and any other type of trigger is just adding to that response that we have. There are lots of reasons that we may respond in a different type of way. And one of the things that, you know, the 4 competencies that Daniel Goleman talks about under the self-management, the first one is about self-control. And the self-control is about creating that space and saying, okay, how do we interrupt that thought and go, right, something's happened, how should we react? So something's happened, I've had an emotional response, how do I interrupt that now before I react? So that I'm not just going, yeah, I'm just going to start shouting or going to start throwing things around the place. I'm actually going to go, okay, what is the stimulus that's coming in, and how do I want to react to it? So that's what our emotional self-control is trying to look at, is trying to build in that disruption to the response and say, okay, how should I respond now that we're here? Adaptability is around how we're able to change. We have our goals, we have our things that we want to achieve, but how can we adapt our way to doing that? How can we change our approach to doing that, given different circumstances, so that we're not just going, there's only one way that this can be done. So we can listen to what's happening around us and we can change our response to that. And then if we're looking at achievement orientation, so achievement orientation is about how we're setting ourselves goals, how we are having those clear goals that we're trying to work towards, and how we can meet or exceed those. So once we put a goal out there, are we able to continue motivate ourselves to achieve that goal, have that intrinsic motivation to achieve that goal? And then positive outlook is about ensuring that we have, that glass half full, not always seeing all the negatives all of the time. So can we see the good in things? Can we see a way out of it rather than see an opportunity rather than a problem as we go throughout? So again, if you do I don't know if anybody's done any of the emotional intelligence assessments before, but you'll see some questions that would be based around how do you perceive events or setbacks that might happen. Are they challenges to be overcome, or are they roadblocks that are just going to stay in your way? And that's really what your positive outlook, that's what it's trying to assess there. How do you assess these things that are coming in? So our self-management is looking at these 4 key competencies. And again, these are all things we can work on and develop as we go through. I'm going to pause because I see quite a lot of chat coming in, but I haven't been reading it. Was there any questions that came up there?
Yeah, so I think I'll ask people to be prepared to ask from their own perspective if there's something that they want to mention. There was one that was quite early on that's worth calling out there, which is, how would you describe the difference between self-management and self-organization?
From which perspective was that? Self-organization from what perspective? I'm not too sure who raised that question.
So
This is Ruchi. I raised that question. So for example, when we expect Scrum team to be self-organized,
okay.
Is there any specific difference between being a self-managed team or being self-organized team? I hope I'm able to clear.
Yeah, that's perfectly clear what you're talking about there. So here, this is more from your own perspective, that you're trying to look at your own self-management, and it's about your response to emotional events. So it's separate from, when we're talking about self-organization within a Scrum team, we're talking about their ability to work together to resolve conflicts or impediments or to deliver their work and product. Here, what we're talking about in self-management from an emotional intelligence perspective is we're talking about our own ability to manage our own response to our emotions. Does that make sense does that clarify your question?
Yes, I understood that. And then if we would like to apply the same question as an individual, is there any difference? I mean, shall I call it out myself as self-managed person or self-organized person? How would I get the difference between that?
Yeah, again, it's probably down to, so self-organization could cover a number of different things, where your self-management here is really focused on your emotions and your ability to control your emotions, your ability to look at events and overcome challenges. So depending on what you mean by self-organized from a personal perspective, there's definite overlap there within it.
Got it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
no problem. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that?
there was a part when you were recognizing the different circumstances when you might have more or less emotional self-awareness, and Thomas was recognizing in his own situation where it's not just it's actually affected by the different environments. So I don't know,
Yeah.
talk for you, Thomas. Probably a good opportunity to come in yourself here, but recognizing the difference between the office environment and home.
Yeah, thank you very much. As James said, I missed it a bit, but I was wondering if it's common to have big differences in where you're able to be both emotionally stable and also be emotionally have emotional intelligence, perhaps is the word for it, when it comes to like relationships with your friends or with your kids, and then you have a totally different set of awareness when it comes to your role as a scrum master or in coaching teams or colleagues or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and obviously, there's different times when we're going to respond differently to different emotional stimuli.
Yeah.
When we're stressed out, we tend to not have as much self-control, because we tend to be more reactive because our body is in that fight or flight aspect of it. So our body's starting to, go, oh, there's something, there's a danger here. So my brain's going, yeah, just respond. So
Okay.
you tend not to be able to do, you tend not to be able to control it so much. But one of the things to try there is, if you often find yourself in that situation, is to actually do some reflection on that, and reflect on it every time it comes up and go, okay,
Yeah.
what happened in that situation? What caused me to react in that type of way? Why did I do that? What other reasons could there have been? How could I have disrupted that? How could I have stopped myself from just reacting? And then what would have been the outcome of it?
Okay.
So there's always a way to help you train that competency to react differently.
Yeah, I did a NLP training course actually, and one of the things they went through was to create an anchor for yourself, like just a small thing that you do for yourself, and you just kind of reset. Is that something you've
Definitely.
worked with, or yeah?
Yeah, for myself, it's like I have to count in my head. That's my, I know to take a breath. My first thing is to take a breath, and just with breathing in, then starting to slow all those reactions down, and it's starting to get more oxygen coming to your body, and it's going, okay, now you're able to respond a bit better. Also, even doing little things like, if it is a very, very highly charged situation, just going to someone, can I go up, could we take a break for 5 minutes? Or let's come back to this later when everybody's not so emotionally charged, because sometimes you just keep them going. And we probably know this from home life or work situations. If you just keep going, it doesn't become very productive. The conflict just escalates, and it's not going to resolve the issue properly.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Great.
question.
Thank you very much for your response.
No
I mean, I
problem.
don't know how much longer you want to hang around here, because there are still a few more.
Maybe we'll take 2 more. Yeah.
You were touching on what to do then, which there are 2 of these questions that relate to tool, which is one, maybe signposting to some assessments, and the other is techniques to stop and those impulse reactions.
Yeah.
You talk about breathing just then.
Yeah, no problem. So I've got lots of other techniques at the end as well that we could use. There's also a link at the end to a free assessment on the Harvard Business Review. Couldn't say that one. And there's lots of paid options around emotional intelligence assessment as well if you Google, but there's a free link at the bottom of this talk as well if you want to have a look at it.
So yeah, that sounds like that'll be covered later then.
Yeah, and we're going to go back to covering the different activities that you can do to help create that pause.
Cool. And so the other one was just simply, what would a goal look like?
That was for achievement orientation. I think if that's what you picked up, James.
Yeah.
I struggled a bit with what you meant by achievement orientation in relation to self-management. So, yeah.
So this could be the goals that you're setting for what you want to achieve out of, maybe out of your life. So I have my life goal sits in front of me. I actually have it written down that I can look at every day. And whenever I look at the goals, I have short, medium and long-term goals that I want to achieve. So for myself, whenever I'm looking at those types of goals, and for me, they're work-related life goals. I also have normal life goals. That sounds weird. I also have my own life goals, personal things that I want to achieve from my life as well. So when I'm talking about goals there, it's the goals that you set for yourself. Was that David? That's that question. David, does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that goals, but I was wanting to understand how they relate to self-management in terms of, disruptive emotions and the things, how it relates to emotional intelligence, basically.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. So how that relates to our emotional intelligence is because when we're competent in achievement orientation, we can then persevere in the face of discomfort. So that's the idea behind it, is that we can continue on whenever, if some challenges come up, then if we have clear goals, then we're able to persevere on. So that's part of our emotional intelligence, is our ability. It probably goes back to a bit of resilience. David, if we're talking there. So how resilient we are to keep going even if challenges are coming up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually reading a book on resilience at the moment. So that's
so am I. Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no bother. Great stuff. Thank you. Great, guys. We will have more time for conversation at the end of each of the sections, but yeah, perfect. Great stuff. And then, so that's our two, and we're looking our self-awareness and our self-management. And then we have social awareness. And social awareness is about our ability to accurately pick up on emotions in other people and understand what's going on with them. So here we talk about empathy. Empathy and organizational awareness are the two competencies that Daniel Goleman talks about that sit underneath social awareness. And whenever we're talking about empathy, I actually like Brené Brown's description of empathy, and actually it's something that Jeff always says as well. So Jeff always says, he always equates it when someone talks about, if a woman talks to him about a particularly harrowing situation that's maybe specific to the woman, like for example miscarriage, he can't he doesn't know what that feels like he can't go, I understand what that feels like, but he can empathize with how they're feeling. He can listen and listen to what they're saying and try to understand from their perspective. Because when Brené Brown says it, she says it's not about walking in someone else's shoes, but it's about learning how to listen to their story. So really listen to their story and believe them, even if it doesn't match your experience. So for me, empathy is that really trying to understand what others are feeling, even if it's not what you'd feel in that same situation. It's about trying to understand how they would feel, and having that desire to understand how they see things and what are their concerns around it. So empathy really takes your listening skills, really trying to understand your listening skills, developing your listening skills to develop your empathy. And then organizational awareness. Organizational awareness is about being able to read a group's emotional currents and power relationships, what's happening in a room. You know, you can walk into a room and see the dynamics that are going on. Do we know that there's different and opposing factions in a room? Can we see where people maybe aren't quite getting, where there's going to be a difference of opinion, maybe from the body language or from the tonality or the conversation that's happening around it. So your social awareness is building those skills, firstly, to have empathy for others' feelings and their perspectives, and secondly, to have that organizational awareness to understand what's going on with the groups, the power relationships, the emotions, the dynamics that are happening within it. Were there any questions that came up for those two? Oh, Mike has raised a hand. Mike, do you want to come up?
Yeah.
Yet?
Hello. Social awareness. Question: in your experience with remote working, which I expect probably a significant proportion of us on the call are remote workers, perhaps. How do you think that's affected social awareness within people, and what techniques are there that we can do to mitigate some of those challenges?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Mike, because a lot of what we do now is we forget the whole empathy part and the connection part. You know, we aren't building in the time to get to know people. We aren't building in the time for, you know, the side conversations where we might get an understanding for what's going on in people's worlds. And one of the things that I would say is, you know, the things I've worked with teams on is looking at how you can build in that time for people to connect informally as well, because
The old coffee chat.
yeah, because like you used to do it up around the coffee machine,
Yeah.
or wherever else, you know, or even that as you got to your desk in the morning. You know, we don't have that informal time that we used to have. So people tend to come on the online meetings now and it's like, okay, point 1 on the agenda. Whereas before, when we were in person, people would have come in and went, how was your commute? Or how are you? Everything okay? You know, and you would spend some time actually talking to a person and connecting with them. So I would say that's one of the things that I stopped doing some sessions on Fridays and just says, do you know what? Let's just talk. You know, as a team, let's talk together. Let's have some time just to connect. Even if it's, you know, doing something silly like share your favorite holiday, or just talk about what your plans are for the weekend, or, you know, share what's great about where you live. You know,
Does that ever feel forced though? Because I've done similar things the last few years working remote, and sometimes it feels forced, or people don't always kind of get on board with for whatever reasons. But I totally get it myself.
Yeah.
But you know, you come in on a Monday morning, and you know, in an office based setting, you'd have like, oh, how was your weekend? Except 9 o'clock 9 o'clock daily scrum meeting, talking about what's going on. You know, what did you do Friday? Less about what you did over the weekend, and it's straight into work, and you forget kind of actually behind the screen there's a person that you know may have had a difficult weekend, for example.
No,
And
that's great.
it's difficult.
Great example.
Yeah, just to say something about the last speaker. I mean, in our company, what we do is once a week we have what we call a coffee chat morning. Normally Wednesdays at about 11 o'clock, and we just meet together for about between 30 minutes and 1 hour, just to chat socially. So
Great.
sometimes that's good. Yeah, we just chat. I mean, nothing to do with work, just like a social chat online. So that helps sometimes, because you can catch up with what each person has been doing over the weekend, you know, stuff, another personal stuff about each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and did the feeling forced part of it? I think it was Mike, was asking Mike for the feeling forced part of it. At the start, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found that helps with that is just ask the team what they want to do with it. You know, how much do they want to have it? Always ask the team. You know, is this something that you're finding useful? What would make it useful? How would you like to run it? Like one of my teams was like, could we do a pun Friday? And I was like, yeah, if that's what you want, go for it. You know, or they wanted a quiz, or they wanted you know, so it's give them the ownership of it and don't try to force what you want out of it.
Yeah, thank you.
But thanks for the question. I'm going to take another question before I jump on, and I think Laura, you were next with your hands up. I think so. All right. Laura Demza. Oh.
I might be able to ask that on her behalf while she's finding mute. It was specifically a question about what's meant by organizational awareness.
So organizational
Assuming
awareness.
that's the question she's wanting to ask you.
Okay. Laura, if you can come off mute, that would be. I've asked you to be on mute there, but if you can come off mute, that's great. But organizational awareness is the ability to read a group's emotions, power relations, and the networks and the dynamics within that group. So that's the organizational awareness. Hopefully that cleared that up. I see your hand went down, so I'm hoping that cleared it up. And I'll let Robert just go. Robert, do you want to just ask your question?
Yeah, it was really in response to Mike's comment around trying to get people to come together remotely. I find whenever I've used any kind of coffee chats, it's usually forced. Generally speaking, it's easier to have some kind of event. So whether it's a mural or some sort of work activity, but I usually front end and back end the call with some banter or chat. I actually learned that from when I was my time in Dublin. Those guys seem to have a lot more banter than we do in England for some reason. So I learned that kind of the first 5 minutes and back end 5 minutes, just a bit of banter that really helps smooth the work. And especially if you can get a time, just a month, one day a month in the office, you just can't replace in person. Because like if you look all the cameras here, everyone's got their camera off. I don't know who's reacting, smiling, happy, not happy. I can see Jeff doing his hands. You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's perfect. And that's another great technique to use, is just have that built-in little informal time at the end, at the beginning and end. It's interesting because it is something, you know, I don't always rush to start a meeting. I try to make sure that we are talking with people as we go throughout. But yeah, it's definitely something that we struggle with now in our online world. But thanks guys for the conversation. Perfect. And then our last part, so this is our second part of our outward facing. So we covered the first two were inward facing, looking inside ourselves, and this is our second outward one, is around relationship management domain. And in this we've got quite a lot of competencies, which I'm sure you guys would see if we've got anybody who's Scrum Masters or anybody who's a team lead or even works on a team. These are probably things that you've looked at before. And our competencies here about building relationship management are around how we influence, how we can coach and mentor, how we can resolve conflict effectively, how we can be an effective team member, and how we can show inspirational leadership. So relationship management is really building those relationships with those around us, whether they're our team members or people outside of our teams as well. And it's how well and effective we can build those relationships. So our influencing is looking at how we can have a positive impact on others and meaningfully engage with them to get their support. How we influence. So when we're strong in this, it's about persuading and convincing others for buy-in. It's how we're going to develop strong and trusting relationships with people and engage our most important stakeholders as we go throughout as well. So relationship management is a key part of emotional intelligence as well, because there's two ways in this, in terms of how we work with other people as well as how we understand ourselves. Then down to how we coach and mentor. You know, do we further the learning and development of others? Can we coach them? Do we understand can we help them on how they can achieve their goals? Give them feedback, support, all of that kind of stuff. Conflict management. can we work through these highly charged situations and tactfully bring the disagreements into the open, and bring out all the different perspectives and get common ground for people to work together to an agreement. So conflict management, again, it's another competency that we can look at developing within our teams and within ourselves. I don't know if anybody's ever done the Thomas Kilmann questionnaire. If you haven't, I would recommend go on, Google it. You can get a free one. I'm pretty sure there's always free ones on the internet, but it helps you to just understand what your default conflict resolution mode is, and then understand that of your different team members. I'm probably a lot of people describe me as direct for my approach to people, and whenever I have a conflict, I want to say what I want to say. So I always like just to say it out loud and have that out, and then we can work out where the problems are from that. One of the things that I always have to be aware of is different people have different conflict resolution styles. I had a team, and then on my team there was a guy who just avoided conflict. He just did not want to be involved in any conflict at all. So and I had a guy who was exactly the same as me, who liked just to have it out. I'm used to have very robust discussions, and we used to just work through it, and at the end of it we're like, oh, it's great, we solved the problem. And you would look at the guy who doesn't like conflict, and he's sitting there going, oh, I hated this, I hated all of it. So you have to just be aware of how your conflict resolution mode affects others as well, especially working in a team. Understand what's the right approach and bring people along with you instead of just going to what your default style would be. And then teamwork is our ability to work with others towards a shared goal. How do we build those positive relationships with other people and encourage people to participate? They share that responsibility to work together and deliver together as a team. And then our inspirational leadership is about bringing our best and motivating others around what it is we're trying to achieve and the purpose that we're trying to get done. So that was quite a lot on our relationship management. Was there is there any questions? I can see quite a lot come up there. Apologies guys, I can't see this whenever I'm talking.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best to fire a couple of over, but what would be awesome is if people still want to either add to or get a different point across, then just pop your hand up, and then we can switch from me to queuing. One of them was, I might phrase it a little differently. Have you recently had to deal with a person who didn't actually want to be coached or taught to get better?
Yeah, probably not recently so much. I remember a long time ago, Jeff, I don't know if you remember this, but somebody, whenever we first started off coaching, it was in a big organization. I was a developer, I was a techie. I actually started as a technical coach. And one of the guys around says to me, this communication stuff is all nonsense. Human beings aren't meant to talk to each other. So that was quite a tough one to start out as a new coach. It took a long time to sort of work through that and really understand where they were coming from and why they were saying that. And there were very good reasons behind what they were saying, in terms of, they didn't feel like they were being listened to, a lot of the time, and they didn't feel like they had a voice. So, part of the coaching was to really understand why they didn't want to engage with us, what were they thinking behind it. And one of the other things that person actually said was, if I put my head down, this stuff will wash over me like everything else did, because they just seen so many changes come through, and that's why they were more resistant to coaching. But yeah, for me, it's always understanding why.
And that did generate a bit of chat in that, so maybe some people want to dig a bit deeper. But I'll ask a different one, which is what techniques are there as a manager to raise a new employee's organizational awareness?
So on our organizational awareness aspect of it, it really is about that person developing their skills around active listening. their observation skills. So, you know, one of the things that you could do as a coach for that new person is to reflect after key sessions. So ask them what they seen, ask them what they noticed was going on, you know, what led them to those discussions, etc. So it's really about their observation of both the verbal and non-verbal cues that are coming up for their organizational aspect, organizational awareness. So I would say coaching and using reflective practice and feedback. Any other questions there?
I don't know how to put my hand up here. This shows my non-techie side. But I was interested. What was I? I was interested when you put your shoulders back and said, no, people don't want to deal with that. It's scary for them, blah, 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 blah. I wondered if part of the sort of transaction in that situation, because is that you have to go through the pain of upsetting somebody, and they don't realize that in the longer term it's to their benefit, because they can realize the dynamic of play, and that maybe they had said something that wasn't, or they hadn't done something, and you confronted them with it, and then they get all defensive, and then they come through that and the relationship gets better. And I wonder if that's something you'd experienced, or if that made sense. Or
definitely, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So what you're talking about is where someone maybe has reacted, and you know, afterwards they maybe thought, oh, maybe I overreacted there. You know, I'm sure we've all done it in the past. I definitely have personally, where you've maybe reacted to a situation, and then when you come back, you're going, okay, well, you know, I maybe could have dealt with that differently, you know, or you don't trust whatever somebody's coming in, what's their motives for it. So maybe you're distrustful of their motives, and so don't engage initially until you understand their reasoning behind it. You know, I think coming back to, you know, people don't resist change, they resist being changed. I always think, you know, as a coach, you need to be invited in. The more you force things on people, the more they'll push back on it. From that perspective. So, you know, I definitely can see where you're coming from. That's where, you know, you see a lot of resistance, is where people maybe feel that you have alternative motives, or they're being forced to do something that, you know, they don't see the benefit of, or the reason why. And as a coach, it's really about offering your perspective and saying, well, you know, that is it something I can work with you on? Is it something that we can engage on? And then see how you can support them through it. But I always think I always say it's the vampire. You have to be invited in as a coach.
What does that
mean?
I
should say we've got about 10 minutes left.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, David, what I would say is a vampire has to be invited into a house. Sorry. So as a coach, you always have to be invited in. Doesn't translate in all cultures, by the way. But yeah, maybe it's Halloween, was in my head. Thanks very much, James, for letting me know that. Quick time check. So I am going to just fire on. So some of the challenges that we might see team experiences when they don't have high emotional intelligence is where you have emotional outbursts, no psychological safety, unhealthy conflict. And I think I see a lot of that coming up in the chat, because I see a lot of talk about trust, or lack of trust if there's not emotional intelligence within a team, within the individuals in the team. And people are going to be afraid to try new things. They're going to be afraid they're going to be afraid to disagree. Conflicts will tend to be non-productive in terms of what they're doing. Either people are acquiesce whenever they should have a discussion. So, you know, those are some of the challenges that we can have if we don't look at what our emotional intelligence is in our team. So this is a good conversation to have with your teams, is to look at things like, you know, doing an assessment and trying to get people to think about where their areas for development are as a team, talk about it and see if you can help each other out. Because some of the things that we can try, you know, to develop our self-awareness, as I say, is take that emotional intelligence assessment. I've put a free option in the link. Reflection, take time out after an interaction to reflect on how it really went, on how it went and what could have been done differently. And if you've ever heard of the ABCDE technique, not just the alphabet I'm saying, but what was the activating event? So what happened? What were the beliefs? So what did you think was happening? What were the consequences of that? So say, for example, if someone yawned within a session and your belief is, oh, they're bored, they don't find me interesting, the consequence might be that you don't like that person and you don't want to present for them anymore. But, you know, if you come out of the session and think, well, okay, how else could I have thought of that? You know, what's the disrupting thought? If I had a disrupting thought, what could it be? Well, there could be a different reason why that person's yawning. They might have a new baby and they're just tired. They might have not slept very well last night, might be feeling very well. You know, there's lots of reasons why they might be talking. And therefore, you know, your effect might be go and have a conversation with them, get some feedback, find out why. So, you know, take that time to reflect on interactions that maybe haven't gone as well as you may have wanted them. And just see, can you reframe it? Can you reframe it and see what else could happen with it? Journaling, I think I seen someone write this up in the chat as it flashed up past me. Journaling, write it out, you know, write down what happened, why it happened, what you're feeling about it. Use that reflection time to really sort of go deep in on yourself and understand, you know, why that happened for you. Spend time understanding your own values. You know, what are your beliefs? What's your background? How does it impact your responses? I know for me, fairness is a huge value I have, and if I feel people are being unfairly treated, I will have a reaction to that, and it's something that I have just to be, or if I feel they're being unfairly treated, it's a trigger for me that I have to be aware of within various sessions or within various environments. So I need to know to maybe take a breath at that time and go, okay, what other reason might there be for that? Get feedback. One of the best ways of building your self-awareness. You know, there's a little technique here called 5-5-5. So this is ask 5 people 5 questions and take for 5 minutes. So, you know, you just want their automatic reactions of, you know, what's the one phrase, what do you think is your greatest achievement? Get feedback from people on how things went. So, you know, there's lots of different techniques you can use for feedback as you're going through. Let's see, what have I got left? As always overruns. I thought I had very little on here and I had loads of time. Self-management, learn your triggers. So guys, I would say, see if there's any session where you feel that you've been triggered. And whenever I'm saying triggered, that you've had a reaction that you didn't want to have, that you have a reaction that you feel is disproportionate to the event, or you're going after it, I wish I hadn't reacted in that kind of way. Sit down and think about that, and think about what was the situation that happened? Why did you react in the way that you reacted? And if you had a chance, would you react differently? And it's okay sometimes to say, I wouldn't. Do you know what? I think I reacted okay. Maybe I don't like it, but I reacted okay. But at other times you might find you go, okay, I think maybe I overreacted then. And in the future, I'd like to maybe change my reaction in some way. And think about then how you would like to change it. And continuously do that reflection on, you know, how you are reacting to different events. Get coaching. I think I've seen that coming up. Like this stuff, you know, get a coach to work with you, because there's lots of things that, you know, lots of reasons why we react to certain things and the way we react. So if you get a coach to support you through that, they can help you work that through yourself. Noble stories. So I think I've seen someone there put up assume positive intent. You know, what's a good reason why someone might be doing this? You know, so if somebody is disagreeing with you, you know, if you were trying to put that in, what's the noble story? So, you know, what's the good version of why they're doing that? You know, maybe looking at, well, they really want to understand. They're really interested in making this work and making it be the best solution. Slow down reactions, breathing exercises, just challenge your thoughts. So what's the positive thought you could do? What's the other reaction? I think I've seen someone put up breathing exercises there before. Mindfulness, yeah, meditation, take time out, reflect, slow your mind down. You know, don't be constantly having your mind overwhelmed. Mindfulness it's not a quick fix, but it is something that you can invest the time in. And seek out different points of view, use different techniques to come out with different points of view. Are there any questions on any of those guys that are coming up? I'm just aware that I'm nearly up on time, but we've had lots of good conversation. Any questions there?
Yeah, I'm hoping people aren't waiting for me to champion any of those that have been raised. It's only a couple of minutes, so if there's something burning, you have the power to stick your hand up.
It's quite possibly the most active chat I've had in this session for a long time. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I just see loads coming up, guys, and I'm sorry I can't see it. I can't wait to read it afterwards. But is there anything else was there any burning questions that people have coming up there?
There is another question about the recording. We'll make the recording available. So if there's other questions where you want to make the most of having Aislinn's time, for a couple of minutes.
Nope.
I mean, if you'd allow me to say something, I was wondering about this organizational awareness. How can you teach something like that to a new employee? How do you transfer your knowledge and your experience?
So I think we were chatting about this just before, and there's no magic way to do that, because it really will take time. One of the ways that I would recommend is through coaching of that new employee, through getting them to reflect. So if you are in the same session, getting them to reflect on what they seen in that session, what did they notice about the power dynamics, the decision making, what did they notice about the body language of the people within that session. So have that debrief with them afterwards and see how, well they're picking up on it, and say, give them some guidance, mentoring around that too. So reflection, coaching, and mentoring on that is really, it's not an easy answer, but it just takes time for people to build that up. All right, we are out of time. That was lots of great questions, guys. We will make the slides available. There are a few more ideas around things that you can do as well to develop your emotional intelligence for your relationship management and your social awareness. So there's a few ideas in there.
Yeah, just one quick observation. I agree with you very much when you said with regards to your answer to the last question, when you were talking about organizational intelligence. You need to observe people, look at their body language and so on to know what's going on. Because I've worked with a company before where the PA or the secretary has more power than the director or the CEO. And you will really know, except you're very observant and you look around, and then you see that the person actually making the decisions is the major decisions is the secretary or the PA rather than the CEO or director. Yeah, so that's correct.
Yeah, you need to learn to know who to charm to get into the meeting book. That's exactly right. Yeah, great point. It's all about observation and see how we are. But guys, thank you so much. I apologize that we ran a minute over there. But I do really value all of the discussion that we've had tonight. This will be posted up onto the Mighty Networks. If you do have any other questions, feel free to keep the conversation going there. Put a question up. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions. And thank you all so much for coming along tonight. I appreciate you all.
And thank you for putting the session on, Aislinn. We don't actually have details of the next one, so I think most people here have actually signed up to the group in Meetup, so you should get a notification as soon as we do.
Well, we do, so it is on the 15th of December.
It's not in there.
It is going to be lightning talks by 8 of the guides. Sorry, James. There's going to be lightning talks by 8 of the guides. So Jeff is going to be speaking on that. And we've also got the lovely Robin and Frankie. So there's going to be lots of good speakers on that one. I will publish more details closer to the time. But yeah, if you want to sign up on Mighty Networks, or not Mighty Networks, sorry, up on Meetup. If you want to sign up for it on Meetup, it is published up there. So it'll be an hour and a half on the 15th at 1 p.m. GMT. Is that right, Jeff? Yeah, he's giving me a thumbs up. All right.
See you soon.
All right,
Cheers,
talk
thank
to
you.
you soon. Thank you so much.